Startup Stock Exchange presents SSX EDU Interviews. How did you get into startup investing?
Well, I spent a lot of years working in corporate life, and I got to see a lot of businesses, especially in Asia Pacific, where there was a lot of entrepreneurs who were seeking opportunities. They were struggling to find investors. Most investors at the time were looking for very much successful businesses that were further down the line, and I really saw a gap in the market. And when I returned to the UK, I saw that gap again, and I really wanted to make a difference for that youngster or a company that had a fantastic idea but really didn't know how to move forward. I started to investigate all the different types of investing available, all the new alternative methods that were growing, alternative to the traditional VC funding that people look for. And it's a fantastic little field. There's so many different ways of raising capital up, and obviously Startup Stock Exchange was one that came out and took my attention.
What industry developments excite you the most right now?
That's a fantastic question because with the growth of new technologies, one of which is Google Glasses, which is something that's definitely, I feel, going to revolutionize the market. But 3D printing, the advancement in health devices combined with mobile apps allowing you to be more portable. I think those are definitely the areas that I find fascinating. I was lucky enough when I studied law to do medical law for a year, and I have a lot of doctors. So the advancement of that sort of technology has been probably such a great momentum to change. So ultimately, what I look for and what excites me the most is anything that kind of touches that kind of social aspect, something that improves the condition of life, education, and then kind of helps the next generation reach further than what we will probably reach in our lifetime.
Is there a common theme across your investments?
Yeah, there is actually, and it's a very obvious one. I think a lot of people see it in front of them, but they don't really take heed of it. I look at the talent. That to me is the core. Most business models that I see are typically done at a stage evolution of a business where there is still a lot to find out about your customers and about the market, and the market itself is going to change, but what doesn't change is the talent. And when I look at my investments, when I look at investors, I honestly look for that talent, and that talent then drives the type of themes that I look for. And when I look at innovation and all these advancements in mobile technologies and 3D printing, that's really been motivated through the desire of the person setting up the company. So pretty much technology because it's quick to get out there, pretty much around mobile computing because that's what we are starting to use more and more. We're shifting our way away from the traditional desktop and laptop, and anything also that can reach out scalable around the world that can be replicated very, very quickly. So those are the kind of common themes I look for in my investments.
What are the most important factors you look for in a potential company?
Well, I've highlighted one of them for sure, and that's the talent. I mean, that's the leadership. And if the leadership is bad, or if the leadership is kind of immature in a good sense, because we've all got great opportunities, but sometimes we need that extra element that could be anywhere from experience to support to a combination of factors. That's pretty much what I look for. But on top of that, it's not just about the talent, it's also about making sure that it's a scalable and then it's an idea that's addressing a particular type of problem. It's great to have a hobby and it's great to have your friends that say, hey, this is a fantastic idea. Your friends and family are always going to say that. But does it actually address a problem that needs to be solved? And really, those combinations together just make sense to me. And then that's what I kind of factor in when I look at a potential company.
What specific qualities do you look for in a company's founder and team?
That's a tough one, because all companies are going to be different, all teams are going to be different. They're also going to have different backgrounds. We have a very privileged position in the UK in the sense that we are made up of so many different countries. So we have so many cultures, and I think that's one thing that I definitely look in for when I evaluate the founders and the teams, to say, well, okay, what kind of culture do you come from? I mean, are you the kind of person who throws out an opportunity, or are you the person who kind of looks head on onto that risky kind of factor and then goes after it? And I think that makes a lot of sense to me when I evaluate the founders. I think their experience is just as critical. When I look at a team, I'm looking for a leadership. I'm looking for some sort of evidence of potential, and I'm also looking for a team that has the skills to deliver the results. And so that executionable side, it comes from the history of that team. What did they did before? What are they doing now? What are their motivations? And a lot of that can be found by just talking to the team itself.
What is the most important lesson you've learned as a startup investor?
I think one of the most important things is that as a startup, you can try and plan ahead. You can go and look at the 12-month, the 15-month, the 18, the 24-month and say, hey, look, I've got a business plan and it works, and it's going to work for 3 years, and this hockey stick's going to appear and we're going to make lots of money. But the reality is that, people drop out, people give up, ideas get replaced. You are a timer factor in the sense that we have 6 billion people on the planet. There are going to be people who have the same idea as you have, and they may have more money than you have, and they may be able to go out and execute quicker than you have. You might have team members who, have a change of heart or get a better offer. Things change. And so the most important lesson to learn as a startup investor is to what you have in front of you is very dynamic and organic, and it will change. And it's really to look at the core part of the business and whittle away all the nice stuff that you see in the presentations, that you see in the business plans, and kind of add a bit of practicality to it, to say to yourself, well, it's going to be a tough ride, markets will change, and there will always be the chance of an act of God. Something will happen around the world that will influence something. Customers will also change, and that's the biggest lesson. Be prepared to adjust as an investor with your startups, not just say you made a promise right at the start and you haven't delivered on that promise.
What advice would you give a first-time investor and an investor at any level?
To get overexcited about the opportunities that are out there. When you're a first-time investor, you will be part of what's considered a very special group of individuals. You'll get ideas put in front of you. People want you to come to their parties and launch dates. You'll be asked for your advice. You will become a celebrity in the entrepreneur field. And with that, you become a different person. So it's important to understand why you want to invest in the first place. Is it because you want to be a millionaire? Is it because you want to make a social change? Is it because a friend of yours has a great idea and you want to support them? You've got to work out your motivations right at the start, and you've also got to match that against how much money you have. This is a risk. Risks in startup land are huge, and the first-time investor won't realize that this is very much a business. If you invest in one business or two businesses, you have to manage that portfolio. The chances of success are always slim, But if you treat it as an investment, then you're going to be successful. And that is, it's a portfolio of opportunities. Some will fail, be successful. But if you treat it as, well, I would like to just play my hand at it, then you have to expect failure at some point in time. So the first advice, the most important advice for me is you've got to know what chips you have. You've got to know the person that you are, and you've got to identify the fields that you're going to invest in. And in terms of the second question, which is kind of related, what's the most important advice you would offer any investor? And, you know, if you're not a first-time investor, you've probably seen the process and you've probably worked out where you can play a better part in that process. So if you are an investor, you might work out that what you're good at is investing and also, you know, looking after that investment by connecting them up with your own network, for example. If that's where you want to play, that's where you should play. But don't go off and try and be the entire ecosystem of an investor. Don't try and be the one-stop go-to individual for everything. You've got to know your strengths, and that's, to me, is the biggest probably failure of a typical investor. Is they get good at one area and then they try and do something else in another area. If you're good in one area and you know that area, stick with that area. You'll be more successful doing that than trying to be everything to everyone.
What has been your proudest moment as an investor?
I have to evaluate my success on two bases. One is I've invested in something that has been successful and has returned, has made a return. You know, that's ultimately what you do as an investor. You put money in with the possibility, hopefully a high possibility, that you're going to get that money back and it's going to be a better return to a traditional way of, say, saving or putting money into any other sort of asset. So that, to me, is definitely not the reason I'm an investor. The reason I'm the investor is the same reason why I got into the the actual industry myself. It's going to help people, and it's great to see a company that you know at the start, before you made the investment, were at a certain level, and then to see them kind of grow and mature, get excited about their products, and then go out and make it successful, and then be able to read it on some sort of blog or report. And I think that, to me, is always the proudest moments. And there's been a few, and I guess there's too many to kind of pick out one, but you know, ultimately this is investing is a human connection. It's a connection that you have with a startup, and by enabling them, they are able to do wonderful things. And that's basically all the proudest moments that I can ever take from any investment.
Tell us a horror story from your investing experience.
Which is interesting about startups is that they will change their mind as the project continues. And often, as before, what they promise you at the start is sometimes different to what they promise you later on. I think, one of the kind of typical horror stories that I kind of face is where I come across a great young team with young talent, with a product that makes a lot of sense, and you've put money in there. Well, I think the most amazing thing about SSX is that it is what I represent as a big alternative in the way you typically raise capital up. Now, I went to business school, and I got told the ABCs of VC capitals and entrepreneurship, and typically, there is a process which you follow. You go through a certain combination of funding rounds until you get to that bigger investor. I think I guess my advice to any particular investor is, the world of investment is changing. There are huge amounts of changes happening in the way you raise funds up. And you cannot continue to rely on a traditional, long-standing way of raising capital. There are alternative ways of funding. Crowdfunding is an example, but SSX is another great example as well. We're going to see a lot more of these models that will appear over time. A lot of the VCs that I know of are they're reevaluating their own business models. Their funds are getting smaller, and people are now shifting their way across to alternative methods. And I think SSX is a representation of the new kind of evolution when it comes to raising finance. And a personal story for me is that I actually chased SSX myself. They didn't come to me; I went to them, and I spoke to the CEO. The story goes is I found out about SSX. I love their model, and I wanted to be involved. And now I'm an experienced guy. I have enough experience to know good and bad, but I went after something that I think is going to revolutionize the market. So I chased SSX. I'm a big supporter, and I think, as an investor, you shouldn't think small. You shouldn't think, well, it's just angel and VC-ing. There is so many different opportunities and so many different models that are happening around the world that, get involved, put your hand up and say, well, I like to try this new stuff out. And just be aware that the market's going to change, and you want to make sure that you change with the market. That's really kind of the biggest advice I could ever give any person looking into investment.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share your thoughts and experiences in investing with the SSX community. This has been a presentation of the Startup Stock Exchange SSX EDU Interviews.